Called recording in progress. There we go. Okay, yeah, and then that way on my end, it'll be easier to share and control everything from here. So I think we're I think we're good. Let
Okay,
me
awesome.
try the share screen real quick. It'll go to the media player. Yeah. Okay. We
Yay.
don't need to, yeah, we don't need to do that yet, obviously. But once we get around to the sharing, I'll go back and forth. So the first clip that I'm going to play is going to be Saint Francis. He's going to talk about his basically the what's going on Earth, this disconnection between people in their home planet, and the this was eventually between Saint Francis, Wayne Dyer, and Gandhi when we talked to them about the spiritual sides of the what's driving climate change. They came up with some really interesting feedback and answers for us.
hmm
It's the one part of it is kind of obvious that we're disconnected from the planet. The humans are treating the planet like it's all take and no give. And they just think of the planet as a dead rock floating around the sun with no soul to it, and that the life on the planet is,
Yeah.
as Gandhi said, we think of ourselves as being superior because we're humans and we're superior to other life on the planet. And then Wayne Dyer filled that in and said, yes, the Earth, what the climate change we're seeing is a manifestation of this, the illness in our relationship with the mother planet. And then he came in and said, and there's another part of this, which is that we know what we're doing is wrong,
hmm
and we have this guilt over what we're doing. And with guilt comes punishment. We have this idea in our mind that guilt
Yeah.
comes with punishment. So our punishment is an angry planet that stops giving us, stops cooperating with us. So,
Wow.
and then he talked about how we can connect through our hearts to the planet, which for you and I are, I mean, for people who do grounding and have a
Right.
spiritual practice and stuff, but most of the people I know, this is kind of a foreign concept to them.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get these messages on the one hand to the people who, like us, who are involved in this and have a stake in sort of let's heal the planet, let's level up, let's advance our consciousness. And then we also have to get to the people who are sitting there at home going, uh, connect my heart to the planet. What do you mean? You know, like,
How do I do that?
yeah. So, and I know from your, helping with your books and stuff that lots of grounding exercises. So if anytime you want to pop in there and use
Okay.
this as a teaching tool, that's really what we're trying to accomplish. So,
hmm
okay.
Okay. So let's start with that. Yeah, that'd be a great place to start. Okay.
Okay. You want me to
Here.
do a countdown and then,
Yep, that's good. And then I'll start the intro.
okay. Deep breath. It's good to see you.
Two.
Finally. Okay, here we go. Three, two, one.
Hello and welcome to Sacred Wellness. I am your host, Terry Ann Russell, and today we are discussing Voices of the Beyond, a sacred space where messages from the unseen weave wisdom, healing, and truth into our human experience. Today, my guest is JM, Jason, as I call him. How do you prefer to be acknowledged today?
Just call me Jay. You're used to Jason, so we'll go with that.
Yes.
Just so
Okay.
everyone knows, JM is what my books say. So if you go looking for any of my books on Amazon and other retailers, then you'll find me under JM DeBord.
Okay, great. He is the author of the forthcoming book of the science of the paranormal and best known for his expertise with the interpretation of dreams. He also runs the largest site for dream sharing at Reddit and an online school for learning to be wise in the ways of dreams. He has been an inspiration to me, has helped me so much. He was the editor of my first two books. He helped me so much with that. And when we connected in the beginning, gosh, it's almost 6 years now. Anthony will be past 6 years, and we had such an intense connection. And I'm so grateful for our time together and spending with you. You've just been such an inspiration to me. I've learned so much from hearing you and listening to you and getting to know you. So thank you. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Terry, and likewise, reading your book, editing your book with about Anthony. I came into it without much experience with channeling and mediumship and just connection between us and the other side. But it planted a seed because it opened my mind and also got me practicing a little bit of. I would reach points in the manuscript when I was editing your book, and I'd be like, I'm not really sure what to do here. And I would feel kind of coming down through me what I thought was Anthony and would sort of tell me, okay, this is what you do, or I would feel like I was putting words in his mouth and I'd be like, man, I really need to I need to feel like what I'm saying here is accurate and true to what he would want. It would honor him.
Yeah.
And I would get the words would come flowing into my mind and I'd be like, okay, I've tapped into something. I'm gonna just keep going with it. And that led to the project that I've done now with Channeled Messages of Hope, because I mean, it's taken me much further into the channeling side of things, the mediumship side. Not that I'm doing it personally, but now I'm producing an audiobook and podcast that are based around channeled messages from the other side. So thank you
Right,
for
and you
me to start.
understand it. You understand it a little more because it was experienced through you, right? I always say that our experiences really is what shapes us. If you've not never had that experience, you might be a little bit more like, oh, I don't know so much about that. But when you actually experience something like that and you can't deny it anymore, your eyes have been opened, you get to see, feel, hear, or know what that is coming from the other side. And often Anthony does not, he curses, he doesn't hold back. So you were probably like, what the hell is going on? Like, this is spirit.
Yeah, yeah, but it's real. It's people being real. Like, yes, you've released from your body and when you cross over and you have this immediate expansion of consciousness, you have this awareness of the larger system that you participate in as a conscious being. These sort of levels of spirituality or dimensions to it that you're now opened up into this larger system. Whereas when you're in a body, you're scrunched down into this little tiny point of view, very limited. But one of the things that we found out through Channeled Messages of Hope that I found to be fascinating is that a lot of these personalities from history that we talked with about how to heal the planet are still very much the way that they were, in body.
Yeah.
Samuel Clemens, for instance, Mark Twain, the author, we contacted him because Nikola Tesla was his friend on Earth. It turns out these two were friends while they were on Earth together. We were talking with Nikola Tesla about the science behind clean energy technology. And he says, you should talk with my friend Samuel Clemens. And so we're like, okay, great. He's like, Sam has a perspective on things. He can make people laugh. He can, like he can see the hope where there may not seem to be much hope.
Right.
And so when we talked to Samuel Clemens, he was hilarious. Like you could imagine sitting around the parlor with the guy, maybe smoking a cigar, hanging out, and there's Samuel Clemens, and that's the way he came through. So the personalities of these souls really shine through in the audio. And it taught me that we're not just going up there and playing our harps and hanging around, like we retain who we are as people, our
Yeah.
personalities. And our lives continue in a way that's based around what's in our hearts. Our relationships continue on the other side. And whatever it is that we are really passionate about and interested in, there are apparently like these working groups on the other side where people coalesce around souls, coalesce around common purpose and interest. So we heard from like John Muir that there is like it's almost like a meetup group, like people who love the earth and appreciate her beauty. And in life, they were photographers and artists and poets and conservationists and all this. They have what you might call a working group or a social group on the other side. And not only are they sharing their passions and their art and their creativity, they're also sharing ideas and sending them to people on earth who are receptive to their
Mm,
messages. So if you're
I
an
love that.
artist who's into nature and you have someone that you really like, say an Ansel Adams, like you really love Ansel Adams photography, you can actually connect as long as Ansel is willing on the other end. And we found that this is all about choice. But as long as Ansel
Right.
is willing to connect with you on the other end, then you can start getting a telepathic connection directly with him or
Yeah.
whoever it
I
is,
love
her,
that.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Channel Messages of Hope first. So this is a project born of our author Carolyn Thomas's personal search for healing from a serious disease. And it led to contacting the other side through her friend Sam. And so you mentioned Sam when we talked about this. And then Carolyn's husband John got involved also, right? So there's a whole network, and you talk about these different people that were alive at certain times throughout history and their connection that they still have to the planet. I love that because I think it's so important to stress that. As you said, when we leave, we do just not disappear. We don't go somewhere and sit
yeah.
on a cloud and just like, look at the world. Oh, this is beautiful. But I want to talk a little bit. There's a couple that really interests me, and you're going to play some audio for us. So tell me a little bit about, so St. Francis, obviously, growing up Catholic and very religious, I have a lot of these ties to these Mother Mary, of course. I would love to hear, has Mother Mary come through at all?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
But she wasn't asked either. I mean,
Okay.
so this is born of Carolyn Thomas is the wife of John Thomas. They're both listed as authors, co-authors, but Carolyn really was the hub. She was the author of this project. And it began with her search to find answers to a serious disease that she was dealing with. It was becoming so debilitating that she didn't really want to be here anymore on Earth if she had to live in this body that was just full of pain and not getting the kinds of answers from the doctors, conventional medicine. So she ended up on a healing journey, which, as you know, from people who, you know, go on these journeys, they often find themselves in unexpected places. And for Carolyn, who was already a spiritual person, it led her into contacting the other side. And what happened was her friend Sam, she knew Sam as an animal communicator and naturally gifted psychic person who would, maybe do some readings on the weekend with small groups of people, but she wasn't doing this professionally. And she had a day job working in Silicon Valley for an investment firm. So very, very different lifestyle by day than, this sort of weekend warrior spiritual channeling stuff that she was doing. Intuitive, more of an intuitive type
Mhm.
of work. Well, someone started coming through from the other side to Sam and said, can you facilitate communication with Carolyn? Because we sense that she's ready to check out and she's going to take her exit if she can.
Wow.
And we need to let her know um, that there is a way through this for her. And so she was connected to this Hindu guru from a past life who is on the other side and started coming through Sam to talk with her. So this led them to start experimenting because Sam is not a conventional medium. And when I say conventional, most mediums remain fully conscious and aware of what they're doing as they channel from the other side. Like if you started channeling Anthony, then you have this connection in your mind. You can hear him telepathically and you can communicate what he says to you. Um, but you're fully conscious as you're doing it. Sam would go into a trance state. She learned how to shut down her root chakra, the root and sacral and solar plexus. She would sort of tone them. I say shut down, but really it would be like a valve and shutting it
Mhm.
down to a trickle. And then what she would do is fully open up her crown chakra and allow the spirit to come down into her and actually use her vocal apparatus. And so what it meant was that Carolyn could sit on one end and Sam could be on the other with someone like a St. Francis, his soul inside of her body, and have a direct conversation with Carolyn. So Carolyn, from there, she would prepare, she would come up with questions, and then walk into this interview with the other side. So
Right.
that's how it really the project got going. It started as an experiment, and then it started getting like they started getting communication from unexpected sources on the other side. And then the other side said, "We see what you're doing, and we have an idea about what we can do with your project." And it turned out all along that they were the ones who were feeding her the inspirations. But you know, you get these things that pop into your mind, and you think that, or you don't realize that there's a source coming from, you know, this deeper dimension of spirituality, that it's actually communicating with you to give you some of these ideas. Carolyn realized that all along the other side had been steering her in the direction of doing a project like this. And since
Yeah.
her really good friend, Sam, was an very naturally gifted medium, it put all the pieces in place for her. So
Yeah.
they started getting contacts with the other side where they said, okay, we're going to set you up with souls who can speak to various aspects of what we consider to be the highest priority right now, which is global warming and climate change. The
Hmm.
relationship that human beings have with their planet is so out of whack. We need to address this first. So we're going to have you talk with St. Francis and Gandhi and Albert Einstein and Nikola Tesla and Stephen Schneider, a famous climate scientist, Charles Keeling, another famous climate scientist. They all passed over, obviously. And I mean, 19 of them in total. Ronald Reagan to talk about the politics of
Wow.
climate denial. You know, Gaylord Nelson, a Democratic senator who was very influential as a chairman of a Senate committee on the environment, very influential along with Richard Nixon in creating the EPA. Uh, we talked with Teddy Roosevelt because of his history with the national creating the National Park Service and being a big environmentalist. So, you know, we addressed it from all these different angles and then came up with what we consider to be a fairly comprehensive approach to how do we
Right.
solve the climate crisis.
So that's probably the biggest, greatest challenge that we have right now is the climate crisis. And actually the crisis that we do have within ourselves, right, as well, because it is a direct connection to the earth. But we all, I mean, as a collective, our society has totally lost our way. It's been many, many years. It's
Yeah.
not just been an overnight thing. And so you can actually, for someone like me and you, we can understand where that connection exists a little bit more, right? Someone who maybe is just listening or just waking up to spirituality might not fully understand the total connection, that total connection that we have within ourselves and the importance of the connection with the earth that we share. You know, because I say share because we are a piece of her, right? She exists. I believe her to be a sentient being, and she feels and she knows and she, you know, just like Mother Mary, when I did the book about Mother Mary with her, she feels this disconnection and she's wanting something to change. And so
Yeah.
I think what you're doing here, and I want to hear a little bit more. Can you play a little bit more about what St. Francis has to say about this disconnection of our home planet?
Yes, absolutely. This was one of the things that, as we got into this with the souls, you know, we were approaching it from different perspectives. And where they said it really needs to start is with the relationship with the planet and understanding that it is a living entity. So, what I want to do is play a clip of St. Francis talking about this. So, let me get to here it is.
The planet is a living, breathing thing. And if you were treated as such, you would also be angry. And the lesson is that we need to come together and we need to be kind to each other and honor each other. We need to love each other as best we can and love everything in our world. And that comes from kindness, and that kindness needs to be shared with our planet, that kindness needs to be shared with the animals, and to see the earth as someone who can read our thoughts, read our intentions, give the earth the respect that we would ask. and that is to be treated with kindness and honor.
So that came through okay on your end, Terry?
Wow. Yes,
Okay.
I heard it great. Hmm.
So that was Sam with St. Francis speaking through her. Sam is in a trance. She remembers very little about anything and when she comes out of the trance, which is kind of old school mediumship. If you look into the history of it, the original
Yes.
mediums were often in total trance states. And it was more like a seance where they became the souls inhabited their bodies. But St. Francis tells us that the earth is a living thing and that what we're seeing is basically it's like if your mother will put up with almost anything from her child until they cross the line into disrespect. And then what does mom do? Terry Ann, when one of your children not only is acting out, but actually acting disrespectfully towards you, what do you do as a mom to make them aware that they've crossed the line?
Yeah, I'm gonna give it right back.
You know, a little whack upside the, on the booty or
Yes.
whatever, like, yeah, and it's not that we want to emphasize, he says the earth is angry, but it's in that sense. He says that what we're seeing, and this comes in other clips that we played, and our latest episode, by the way, is on St. Francis. So if you look up Channeled Messages of Hope, the podcast audio version we have out, the latest episode is on St. Francis. So it's episode 9. And you can find that at channeledmessagesofhope.com. And then the YouTube channel is catching up. We're producing these, fully producing videos to go with each of these episodes. And the video editor is still catching up. But that will be coming on cmoh.show. It takes you to our YouTube
Okay.
channel. So when he says the earth is angry, he means it in the sense of like, when you've crossed the line with mom because you are not only acting out, but you're disrespecting her. Mom gives you everything and expects nothing in return except respect what she gives you, respect what she does for you. And
Yeah.
so, in that sense, the anger comes from that. And since the earth is a living entity, how else does she express her feelings? I mean, the earth expresses herself as a mother through the beauty of her creation, through the sustenance that's provided through having a planet, a home to live on. She
Yeah.
basically provides our home for us. And what we're doing is the equivalent of, if mom walks into the bedroom and you not only have your toys everywhere, but you've peed in the corner, you've done these things that were unnecessarily destructive, um, then that is where she starts to draw the line. And this is what we're seeing on Earth right now is that not only have human beings, made a mess of everything, we're doing it with a sort of sense of entitlement, a sort of impunity. And I think this is where we have to learn the lesson that, I mean, what we're doing by exploiting every resource on this planet and taking without giving anything back, without acknowledging that there's this relationship with the planet, um,
Yeah.
that's why we are experiencing the anger of the intensity of the hurricanes, the wildfires, the warming, and the die-offs. Not to say that she's doing this on purpose. She's not killing off, in a mass extinction, which we're in the middle right now of the greatest mass extinction this planet has ever experienced. We're in the middle of it right now. And it's not like she's doing that on purpose. It's that there is a feeling, though, that the planet is angry with us for what we've done. And that's
Yeah.
where some of the other people came in. Yeah, what do you think of that, Terry Ann? That idea of that the planet is expressing its anger with us.
Well, yeah, because it makes sense, right? Because if we are sentient beings and the earth is a sentient being, why would she not express herself, right? As you said, the beauty, the kindness, the love that she gives us, and we just throw it and don't even acknowledge it and don't give back. You know, that's like something that's so passionate to me, is about this connection with our heart, with other people, with the planet, with other beings, because I think our heart holds such a resonance of love. When you connect with that heart space, you really can't deny. And I've said this numerous times. If we could truly find it within ourselves to love ourselves, we can see the love in other people, right? But we are such a society that has been such beat down and so self-absorbed, and we have such low self-worth that we can't see that in other people. And so it really starts, I believe, at home within yourself. If you can connect with your own heart space, feel the love within your own heart, and then begin to see it in the others around you. I mean, there's people that I've met that are like, everybody's bad, I trust nobody. And I'm like mortified. How do you go through a life not trusting people or thinking everyone's bad? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. And that seems that the one of the that was at heart really the message that we got from them was that um we can connect through our hearts to the planet, and this is how we begin the healing, or the this is okay. So I did this meditation that we actually had Wayne Dyer. He was one of the souls we connected with, and he does this meditation basically, but it's not, sitting there going, it was more of just like, make your awareness tune in to deeply into yourself, into your heart, and then extend that down into the planet itself. And, I've been working on the audio book really intensely. This was, some months ago before I started the podcast. And I was taking what were basically Zoom recordings, and I was dicing them up so that I could get the parts of the audio out that I could use for the audio book. And so I was listening to this really intensely, and I had taken a break and I'd gone out onto the porch, and it was in the evening and I was trying to relax a little bit. And I was remembering what Wayne said about making your heart move down to the planet and feel this connection going back and forth. And I'm a little bit of a blunt tool sometimes. I mean, and sometimes things have to be a little too obvious for me before I start to get it. But I said, okay, let me try this. And I had this after doing it for, just doing the breathing, feeling it pulling up into my heart space, feeling my heart space flowing out. And I suddenly went like this bigger picture. I could see in my mind me sitting here in Tucson, Arizona, like there was an aerial view from 1,000 feet up. And there's little me on top of, like, I became aware of the fact I'm actually sitting on top of this giant planet, and I'm just this little tiny piece of it. And I could actually feel the energy flowing back and forth, where she, Mother Earth, then when she connected with me, it was a very distinct experience. Like the energy just flowed into
Yeah.
my heart space. And I went, wow, that's the living presence of Mother Earth. And Terry, and that changed, at that point, it changed everything. It wasn't just a job for me from that point. I do things, editing and audiobook and stuff. I do this. I'm a hired gun, basically, but it became more for me. It became a mission, because once I connected with her, then it was on. It really, the light
Life
bulb came on.
altering.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Life
I will
altering
say that
moments.
the practices from, because when I did your Mother Mary book, as I was
Mhm.
editing it, I went ahead and did those exercises as I was reading them. And that started a relationship with the sort of feminine mother side of myself and my own
Yes.
psyche, known as anima, a Jungian concept of a side of every man. There's inside of every man is a woman
Hmm.
psychologically, and inside of every woman is a man psychologically.
Yes.
Deep concepts, but I had worked on this stuff for years, and I understood it intellectually. I understood it conceptually, but then I started experiencing it personally, and that's when things
Mm,
changed for me. So thank
yeah.
you. I still have my angel wings, by the way. There is this exercise that came from Terry Ann's book. One of them that struck me the most vividly was when you feel the wings come out of your back and you can open them wide to move, to fly. But the one that really helped me was to feel them wrap around when I feel like I need protection. And
Yes.
I can feel it come out of that space between my shoulder blades. I can feel it come out and around, and I can spiritually protect myself with through doing that opening or awakening of this deeper spiritual capacity because I first tried it out in your book. So
Yeah, I
thank you
love
for that.
that. And I still use it and I have people reach out to me, and that is one of the most beautiful ones that I've experienced as well. I mean, having that protection, that knowing that you have that ability and they're there, right? They exist. You can feel them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Feel them when they expand, and there's nothing like I've felt like that in the world. I mean, it's been an amazing experience just with that. But I want to say too, going back to the grounding and everything, I've always, learned to ground much later into my experience as my spiritual journey has expanded. But one thing I would always do was connect with the trees. I love the trees, the flowers, right? The beauty, the mountains. I actually can bring myself out of my body through my heart space, connect with those trees, just say if it's trees today, and feel their energy come back to me. It's similar to what you were explaining with the earth and going down into the earth, deep into the earth, and feeling her energy come back up. And the ability to see the trees move and respond to what I'm sending them, and then to send back to me a similar vibrational, I don't know if you would call it like a tone or a vibration, I guess would be the
Which
right word,
one and the
but like
same?
a
Yeah.
similar, like as if they're speaking to me, right? So they're speaking to me through this movement, and that grounding ability that I have through those moments, same as you. There's been nothing like it in the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah, it does change the way that you feel about, your approach to the planet, the way that you feel your relationship is with it. I think most people that we know and know of don't feel any sort of relationship with the planet. The planet is just here to provide what they need, and they're often disconnected from how that happens. Like when I start talking with people about how the meat industry produces, what in the end, what you get is a piece of ground cow smothered in cheese and mayonnaise served to you on a bun with pickles and onions. What you don't see is the factory farm with 10,000 cows who are in pens so that they can't even reach around and scratch their own butts. And they spend their lives being bred as fast as they can so that they can take them to slaughter. And the slaughter
Yeah.
is horrific. It's for the animals and for the people. We're actually producing psychopaths by stuffing people into these environments and forcing them to be able to earn their 20 bucks an hour. Their job is
Yeah.
to mass slaughter animals. We're what I try to tell people that, it's not that it's wrong to eat meat. It's
Right.
the way that we're going about mass producing it. That hamburger that is for you is, I mean, what you end up in the end, and you eat that hamburger and you're like, tasty cheeseburger, you're
Right.
not thinking about what it took to produce that thing. And
Yeah.
so this level of awareness can actually, I mean, it's enlightening, but it's also very challenging because it'll force you to confront things about the way that we're treating the planet and that we're getting our conveniences from it and our sustenance in ways that are just totally wrong. Would you like to hear
Have
the Wayne
have they
Dyer clip?
showed us? Yeah. Have they ever talked about how we have lost our way so far from what we used to be?
A bit, although they don't necessarily refer a lot to the past.
Mhm.
What Francis said was that the Earth is a completely different place than what he experienced in the 12th, 11th, and 12th century when he was here. And it's not just materially. Obviously, we've gone from what was for him 12th century Italy and what he experienced at life on Earth to 21st century, America, what we're experiencing. And I mean, obviously everywhere, but you and I are here in
Right.
Arizona. So we have our base of reference. It's like, yeah, it's a very different place. People's priorities are very different. We did have some of them talk a bit about things like what social media is doing to us,
Mm,
the attention that we're giving to our technology and our devices. I would like to have maybe heard a little bit more awareness of this because I think that there's a sinister side to this, in that a lot
yes,
of
I
this
agree.
is being done deliberately. It's a sort of mass hypnosis, psychological warfare. And what people don't realize is that the psychological warfare is being implemented step by step. And it's not just by military and, shadowy government groups. We're talking about, companies that have more power than our government has, and the
Yeah.
ability to be able to shape people's perceptions by reaching them through their technology and the messaging. The propaganda is really deep. I didn't hear as much of that as I would like to have heard from them. Um, but it wasn't really the focus either of what Carolyn was asking. These are, after all,
Right.
messages of hope. And if
Hmm.
I start getting into the dark side of things, then it starts sounding not very hopeful. But
Right, but maybe
can
we could
I?
understand where we lost our way and, having that understanding, knowing, what we could do differently. Because obviously, when you're like us, we understand that enough sleep, grounding, the connection with other people that we love, um, meditation, yoga, all of these things, the herbs of the earth to feed us and nurture and care for us when we're sick. All of these things that we
Yeah,
used to do and we don't do now, you know, how can we change that, especially for like our younger generations who have known nothing other? Like my youngest child's 15. She's known no other than all of this computer, this technology, whereas my older children didn't have that when they were first born. But you see these young kids nowadays, 3, 4, 5 years old, on their tablets everywhere they go, and they're entrenched. And if that tablet doesn't work or the battery dies, they're having a shit fit in the corner, like they're having a breakdown. And it's such an addiction, I find. And if we can start teaching our children, the power of meditation at a young age, the power to quiet your mind, the power not to need that influence from other people, right? Whether you look good, how many likes you got, how many followers, are looking at you, and
yeah.
seeing where we actually can make those shifts and changes. I think that would be helpful for sure.
They
But
talk a
let's
bit
hear what
about that. Yeah.
Wayne Dyer had to say. I'd love to hear from him.
Yeah. Okay. Let me get to the share here. And oh, we got some really great clips here. He, Earth has a soul. We will manifest what we believe.
Yes.
Practicing service. Here, let's listen to, okay, we will manifest what we believe. Let's take a listen to this. It's a longer
I
clip,
love
but this is
it. Okay.
where I think Wayne really gives us.
John, we will create, we will manifest what we believe. And we're all looking for the answer someplace outside of ourselves. We're looking outside of ourselves instead of looking inside ourselves.
Mm, I think you lost it.
It's not created in gloom
There it
and
goes.
doom or hostility or depression. If it feels angry, it's because we are manifesting this, our own anger, our own frustration, scarcity, fear, and so on. That fear, that frustration, that anger permeates in our attitude and our beliefs. As you think, so shall you be. What you believe expands and manifests. So I would say that the best way that we can all work toward manifesting a more loving existence and and a more loving experience with our Mother Earth is to practice meditation and go inward to the silence and imagine not just serving but sending love to this beautiful earth, sending love and replenishment for the resources and repair of the resources.
That actually answers my next question in terms
Here, I'll
of
go ahead
Mhm.
and
specifically.
here we go. Hopefully this is coming through. Terry Ann and I at the last second had to switch to my Zoom, and I had clips prepared, and then the audio, I've got all this complicated, it runs all this audio because this is my audio workstation. So I've got a microphone right here, which, yeah, now you can see it. I've got a microphone here.
You must be a
Magic, right?
magician. I can see it now.
Ooh, look at that. Yeah, baby. Um, and it's running through all my audio stuff here. And so hopefully you're hearing this not just through the microphone, but hopefully you're able to hear it as I play the audio because it should be recording the system audio. We're going to find out when Terry Ann gets her hands on the video file, and here's how it goes. But yeah, what did you think of that? That we will manifest what we believe.
You know, it's funny because a few weeks ago I did a show on manifestation, and it's not really what you think it is. You can sit here and go, I'm positive, I'm happy, I'm skinny, I have money. But if you don't actually believe those things, none of those things, and people get frustrated because they go, why aren't I manifesting? And it has to do with your belief system. If deep down you believe that you're not worthy of that money, can you really manifest money? You know, if you don't believe you're skinny, can you really be skinny? And so these beliefs that we hold deeply entrenched within us, right? How can we manifest if we have these other lower level beliefs? So
Okay.
often I talk about what you believe, right? So what did she say? She said, we manifest what we believe. So often we get the other side of that. I love that she shared that. Another thing that struck me was, as you think, so shall you be. I love that. I think that's amazing for that came through Wayne, and I love his inspiration that he shares with us, and the hope that's coming through all of this. You know, many times you and I've talked about dimensions and dreams, and many times over the year, is this linear? Is it really happening? Is it happening now in the moment, or is it in the past? Is it in the future? What do you think about that? Is it all deeply enveloped into one another, or is it really right now, right here? What do you think about that?
Well, I think there's only this current moment. It's time is kind of an illusion. Is something that
Mhm.
Einstein said, and that we experience things sequentially because we need to understand cause and effect. And the cause is all in what we resonate out to the environment, to this medium that we live within, this physical space. But there are deeper dimensions to this space that pick up how we resonate, and then it reflects it back to us. You know, manifestation for me was kind of I was like most people in that I was trying to override by making myself believe things, and I was trying to override the voices that were underneath there going, uh, uh-uh. You know, hey, you're sitting here talking about manifesting abundance and you're picturing living in this big, beautiful home on, in some California, like Monterey or someplace like that, where there's, beautiful environment and big homes and, wealth and abundance. And then there was this other voice that was underneath it going, where we grew up, when we lived in California, when you were a kid, we lived in a converted chicken coop, which I just found this out recently from a family friend who told me, yeah, when your
Wow.
family lived in California and you were 3, 4 years old, you lived in a chicken coop. I'm like, oh, yeah, But so there was this, with all the, you can't override those things. The path to actually manifesting is to go deeply into those parts of yourself that maybe don't believe that you deserve to have abundance and wealth. that says, well, all our life things have been this way. How is that ever going to change?
Yeah.
And so for me, that was a big part of it. Listening to that chapter on Wayne, and by the way, episode 3 of Channeled Messages of Hope is featured. We feature Wayne's clips. What I did is I took the audiobook and I would pull clips out of it and we would tell a story around it. We kind of come up with a central idea for the podcast episode, and then we have the clips that go around that to help to tell that story. And a lot of it is with the Wayne Dyer episode is about how we are manifesting the guilt because of what we've done to our planet. We are aware of how we are misusing and abusing the planet. And we have this collective guilt. And with guilt comes the expectation of punishment. So we are actually manifesting the punishment we think we deserve. We are destroying our home, and our home is now reflecting what we've done to it. And so, in a way, you could say that we have 200 years of industrialization that's catching up with us right now. But I think that the roots of this go back further, though. It's in a belief system that the planet serves us and not the other way around. That the planet will just keep giving us whatever it is that we ask of it. And it doesn't have any feelings about it because it's not a living entity in and of itself, which is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. You know, like when
Like,
you consider what life is on this planet and you look at like the study of life in ecology, which, St. Francis is the patron saint of ecology. And when you look at how magical life is and that this planet is abundant with it, but it's part of a solar system, which is part of a galaxy, which is part of a galaxy supercluster, which is part of a universe that is incomprehensibly vast. You consider that we are conscious beings because we experience consciousness in ourselves on this planet. So consciousness is a feature of being human. How the heck did we ever start to think that consciousness was just limited to the physical experience of the human being, that it doesn't extend to the animals and to other life in some way or form? They're conscious too, but that it would scale up from where we are. I mean, if
yeah.
we're these conscious human beings capable of an awareness of ourselves that can drive us to do things like invent the atomic bomb, like, which just not in its destructive aspect, but just as a feat of science and engineering. I mean, it was staggering. If you ever saw Oppenheimer, the movie, it tells that story. It's staggering what we did, right? Now we're
Yeah.
producing fusion energy where we're creating a little star in a magnetic containment chamber and we're pulling the energy off of this thing to fuel our, to power our planet. These are staggering achievements that we've done through our consciousness. Now scale that up to a planetary size and imagine the consciousness of a planet. I think it's silly of us to think that consciousness is somehow limited to the physical expression in the human being.
Yeah.
We've really missed something important because of our presumptions and our arrogance. So that
Yeah.
needs to
We're
change.
such a small piece of a bigger piece of a puzzle, right? One thing I want to touch upon before we finish up is I feel like this past year for me personally has been like a redo, right? I don't know if you're feeling the same thing, but going back 7 years, it's almost like my whole life, everything my husband and I are experiencing is like a redo of that time. And we're given like this second chance, if you will. Um, do you think as a collective, have they talked about the collective trauma? That are we healing? Are we ready to heal? Or are we repeating those old patterns that we still get stuck in? Is there a chance? So what I want to know, what my final question would probably be is, are we able to turn this around in the time that we have left to do this?
Okay. We were told by Stephen Schneider, who was a famous climate scientist, that we are not going to we are going to surpass the level of warming that was set out by the Paris Accord as a limit that by 2030, if we didn't limit the global warming to under 1.5 degrees Celsius since pre-industrial levels, that we were going to we're going to be on a trajectory towards some of the worst case scenarios.
Okay.
Now, the climate models have been very highly influenced by industries and by conservative estimates. And we've blown through those over these few years we've not just few years, but we've been blowing through those targets. Where they said, well, we got to limit it to this much warming by this date. And we're always warmer before that date. He told us in 2023 that we weren't going to meet the goals for 2030. No one knew this at the time. There was nothing in the news. He was observing it from the other side. And the journal Nature came out with an article earlier this year that gathered together all the science data, the climate science, and it said, yeah, we've already surpassed 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming. It sounds like a small number, you know, I mean, 1.5 degrees Celsius is about 2.5 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay. You know, but that's global scale warming and it's huge. So in the short term, what we're going to experience is a climate crisis that's probably bordering on catastrophe. We're going to start seeing systems breaking down in a major way. He says, though, that we can do this by 2050, which was the second stage of the Paris goal, was to limit warming to under 3 degrees total over pre-industrial levels by 2050, by completely decarbonizing our economy. We can do that. But Terry Ann, there's another word, apocalypse, what it originally meant. And do you know what that is?
Mm-mm.
Revelation. The apocalypse was a revelation of truth. And from what I'm seeing is that human beings don't change individually or collectively unless they absolutely have to. They have to be forced into a corner unless they have some kind of deep inner motivation to do transformative type of work. I know from personal experience that this usually is born of pain. You're experiencing psychological, emotional, spiritual, and physical, especially the physical pain. And that will make you seek out answers for yourself. It'll make you do the practices, whether it's the breathing and meditation, or it's seeking out a healer, or it's eating better, or it's exercising, whatever it is. And I think collectively that's the trajectory that we're on, that we're going to have to be absolutely backed into a corner before we're going to change the system, because we're locked into something right now that won't allow us, even if if 1 million of us showed up in Washington tomorrow and said, we demand action on climate change, it wouldn't make the news. And the next day they would arrest and remove everyone and just keep going on with business as usual, because we're locked into an economic system that demands growth, and growth demands exploitation of resources, including human resources, exploitation of each other. So we're really locked into this. And I mean, I'm not a crystal ball, but I have a feeling that things are going to have to get a lot worse before they start getting better, as far as the way human beings are. But we could have an intervention from the other side. I don't know if you've been following well, there are people who are now going out. It's called Skywatcher is one of the groups. They are engaging the phenomenon. They are going out and engaging with the what we call UAPs or UFOs, and using what they call psionic assets. These are basically telepathic mediums who can communicate with the we call them ships, but I think you've experienced where it's not. Some of them are nuts and bolts craft, but most of them are actually made of light and
Yeah,
consciousness.
sentient being. Hmm.
And there are people who are actively calling them down and asking them to be part of us. And they're engaging with this on a large level. The very wise groups of people who are very well informed, some of them actually being government contractors. If you look up Skywatcher, so I have
Okay.
some hope that there are people who might be able to trigger something what you might call an intervention, where we look up at the sky one day and there's thousands and thousands of them just all coming
Yeah.
down to earth, connecting with us. I remember your experience in Sedona when you had the orb that came to you on the lake or the on the like a lakeside or something like that, and actually manifested as a spiritual being right there in your physical environment. It's the way I remember it. Do you want to?
Yes. It's in the Mary book too. Yeah. So, Ivory, I used to work with the Sedona Soul Sisters when I lived up there, and we would do these connections where we would connect with sentient beings and, ask for their help, because I think it is so important that we, you know, send our call out, because I don't know that we're able to do it. I mean, it may sound gloom and doom, but I don't know that we're able as a humanity to be able to come to a point. Is there enough of us to do it ourselves, that we may need that extra help? And I
Yeah.
think sometimes when I connect, and so what I like to always share with people is that it's not a one and done. It's not set in stone, right? We're able to change and shift realities all of the time. So today, as a psychic, if I go in and I see this, that doesn't mean that tomorrow I'm going to see the same thing. I always say, like, the easiest way I can equate it is I can meet with you and I could go, okay, Jason, I see you're going to have steak for dinner. Now, Jason goes to dinner and he decides he's going to have chicken. Very well, his own free will, right? He can do that. This is the easiest scenario that I've come up with that people can understand. So Jason goes to dinner and he has chicken and he calls me up and he says, "You said I was going to have steak." And I say, "Well, Jason, you have free will and you decided you're going to have chicken tonight." So I want people to understand that that is very simple equation for you to understand, that we have the ability to change and shift our realities. When I look at things, I don't know that as a humanity, if we're going to be able to do this yet. From what I've seen, I've not seen that. I've seen that we do need the extra help. And that is these beings coming down, and more of those like me and you and Ivory and people that can connect with them. And the Sky Watchers, I'm definitely going to look into that. I'm definitely interested in what they have to say. My experience with Heath at that time, his name was Heath. He called himself Heath. That's how he identified with me. But it was such a beautiful experience. And it's not something that you ever forget. And people sometimes look at me like I'm crazy or loony or whatever. But when I share these experiences, and the more people have these experiences, the more they're starting to open up, to awake, to see, to feel, to know, right? We're clearing away those beliefs so that we're able to do that. Where does it start? It starts in the heart. So the more,
Yes.
like you said, meditation, um, eating better, treating ourselves better, treating our body as if it is the temple, right? Because as bad as we treat our bodies, we drink, we smoke, we do drugs. We're all trying to numb. You're around my age. So like I remember, you don't feel it, you push it down. My ancestors, my grandparents, my parents, push that down. You don't want to feel
Yes.
that, right?
Yes.
Numb that shit away. So yeah, so as we come more to a place of, we want to be able to feel and understand why we are like this. Why am I like this? Right? We've had failed relationships, failed careers. Why am I like this? Why do I continually choose these patterns? And so when we look at that and we come back to ourselves, right? Because it does come back to ourselves. I made this choice, right? I made this choice to come here at one time in spirit. And I know that I made this choice. And I know that while my time here, I'm going to spend it doing the best that I can. And will I do everything? No, I won't, and will I have to come back? Probably,
Probably.
so, we don't have all the answers. And I hope that we do get to a point where we can have this planet that I've seen. I've seen these planets with these crystal cities, with these healing beds, with this relationship, with these sentient beings that we're able to have a relationship with them. And, I've seen the beauty also. So I hope we do get there. I'm hopeful.
And whatever it is, apparently what we're experiencing here on Earth is attracting a lot of attention from the larger cosmos because we are at some kind of massive shifting point. And, it will be something it's going to have to be an apocalypse, but in the sense of revealing the truth, a revelation of truth of what we really are. And there are people who are very dead set on this idea of humanism and materialism. They want to think that there's nothing but the material world. There's nothing to consciousness beyond chemical firings going on in the brain. And when the brain no longer supports those chemical firings, in other words, you're dead, then your existence stops, your consciousness is gone forever, and that's it. And
Yeah.
I think that there's a truth that we have to have laid before us that's so obvious that we can't deny it anymore. And that's where we're
And
going. And my book, The Science of the Paranormal, is a step in that direction. It's coming out in
okay.
September. So I
Okay,
would love to
yeah.
get a copy of that to you because it addresses why our science has the proof of all of this. It's there, it's in the published research. I found it. And I'm not, like if I can find it, then it tells me that other people in the science world can find it too, but they're ignoring it. And in fact, they're not just ignoring it, they're suppressing it because we
Absolutely.
can't handle the truth of the fact that consciousness is much greater than just a physical thing. So, um,
Absolutely. Well, I look forward to reading it and I'll be sharing it for sure. So if our episode today has stirred your soul, if your heart opened, or if you're walking away with more questions, definitely check out Channel Messages for Hope and Jason's new book, JM DeBord, Science of the Paranormal. And I'll definitely be sharing those links in the bio and everything so that you can connect with him. And remember to subscribe, share, and like. Really helps me to get my voice out there, which I've been trying to do more and more often. But it really helps us to connect. So until then, stay curious, stay connected, and stay open to the voices from the beyond. I'm Terry Ann Russell. Thank you for joining me and Jason today. Okay.
awesome. All right, let
Awesome.
me stop the recording.